Welcome to Adeptus On-Air, the show where we examine how individuals and companies make decisions that drive their business and personal success. Each week, we connect with notable professionals who pull back the curtain on the industries that Adeptus has been on the cutting edge of for the last 30 years, including music, sports, and entertainment, as well as new emerging markets.
Welcome again to another edition of Adeptus On-Air. I'm your host, Mike Hoffman, and I am very excited today to be joined by my guest, Caitlin Murphy Minoso. Caitlin, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. It is so great to have you here. I appreciate you taking your time today to join me for a little while.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks. It's interesting because I try and mix a variety of guests as we do this podcast, and I look for people in different careers, different fields, different backgrounds. I think it just makes it interesting to the listeners. And you're a client of our firm, which we'll talk about later. And then when I heard what you do now, I was just totally enamored with, which we're going to get to in a minute. But I think also your path to get there, I think, has been kind of an interesting one as well. So for all of you wondering, which we'll get to later, right now, Caitlin is what we call a paramedical tattoo artist. And we will get into all of the benefits and her clientele that she works with. But leading up to that, kind of just talk about your progression when you began your professional career and kind of how you went from where you were to where you are now.
Yeah, so I actually ended up starting my career as a cosmetologist, and I started working at a high-end salon in New York. And from there, I started dabbling in a little bit of film and television work, doing makeup. And I ended up getting a job in Louisiana, moved from New York down to New Orleans, hopped on a show there, and I ended up living there for a couple of years, going from film and different shows. And then I got offered a job on Chicago Fire out in Chicago. So I packed up and moved again. And the show's been going for 11 years now. So I was there for about 5 years full time. Day played a little bit, but I ended up doing a couple more different films, some things around here. And yeah, the rest was kind of history. Makeup has always been a passion of mine, and it kind of ended up seamlessly flowing into the paramedical tattooing that I do now.
I think a lot of people think that the entertainment industry is filmed generally in two places, LA, New York. But what you're seeing now, you mentioned Louisiana, which is really not necessarily one of the hotbeds, but now there's South Carolina, there's Georgia, and then you mentioned, Chicago Fire. But there's like a whole stream of shows on NBC that night that are not only based in Chicago, but I believe all three are actually filmed in Chicago.
Yes, all of it is in Chicago. All three shows, they do crossovers, so some actors will go back and forth, and it's crazy. It's been a really long run. Dick Wolf has a lot of shows on the air, and but it's really cool they definitely enjoy highlighting the city of Chicago, and it's brought a ton of work and jobs for people, which is awesome too.
Yeah, which is wonderful. So when you're talking about doing makeup on a set, I imagine, and I've dealt with the clients that are in the industry, depending on the type of work, it could be pretty generic type stuff, just having the proper powder on to make sure the lighting's good. But when you're doing a show like Chicago Fire, I imagine the makeup gets kind of kicked up a notch because you're dealing with fake burns, fake smoke, and all that kind of stuff. So I imagine that makes the job a little more exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, any show, any film that you're going to be doing, there's always going to be basic beauty makeup. But for me, the really fun stuff is special effects, really cool character makeups, being able to create something from nothing and seeing the transformation is incredible. Even just covering tattoos, which I used to do a lot of as well. A lot of tattoos don't fly on camera these days. So there's just a lot of different opportunities and, different, even just when it comes down to dirt, so many different ways to dirt people. And Chicago Fire is not short on cool makeups.
So how does it work when you're working on a show and, all right, you have to have someone with burns or cuts or things like that? Is it your creativity that kind of comes up with it? Or do you have is it all kind of mapped out first? Or do you have to get approval once it's done from a director? It's not enough, too much. Like, what's that process of going from, okay, I need this person to look like they just came out of a fire, to getting them ready for recording?
Right. So every single episode, you're always going to be reading the script, making notes, and there's continuity things that you need to keep track of. And if there's a big, let's say in this instance, a big burn, if it's a really big one, that's going to go to the special effects makeup department, which they didn't always have. That kind of got developed throughout the years there. But you'll do test makeup. So the actor will come in a couple days prior to shooting. You'll do the test makeup, and it will go through the chain of approval from the director, the producers in LA. And if they want you to make changes, you'll do that ahead of time until you have the final approved result. And you'll take pictures and then recreate it on the day. But it's definitely a process to make sure it's right on point for production.
So typically, how long before a filming are you necessarily in getting people ready in makeup?
It depends on the day. Every day is different. Chicago Fire is a show with a lot of main actors. The cast is 12 people. So on days when everybody's in, that's a big morning. You have at least 4 makeup artists getting everyone together. I was usually up at about 3:30 in the morning, at work by 4:30 or 5. And the women usually take a little longer, maybe 45 minutes to an hour for makeup, and also for hair. Guys are anywhere from 10 to 25 minutes, depending on, what the looks are and stuff like that.
And I imagine in one day of recording, someone can need 2 or 3 different makeups. I'm sure they're coming out of a fire. Maybe they don't always film that way, but an hour later they could be filming a scene where they're in a restaurant.
Yep, exactly. You said it perfectly. And there's a lot of just changeovers and bumps. And on the stages in Chicago, they do have a makeup room on the set, which is great. So if you need to do a quick changeover, then you can have the actors just come in that room, and we're set up to flip them pretty quickly.
And how many episodes have you been a part of, would you say, out of the...
I have not counted episodes, but I was full-time for 5 years, five seasons, and that's about 24 episodes a season. And then several kind of throughout the years. Yeah.
So in addition to the rewarding experience, you gained something else from that show.
I did. Yeah. Are you speaking of my husband?
I think I'm speaking of your husband. Yeah.
Yes. So he is one of the actors on the show. We met, I came onto the show season 2, and we started dating about 3 months later, got married a couple years later, and now it's been a decade. And it's just been a crazy, crazy roller coaster. Chicago Fire brought my life so much happiness.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
And here's the most important question I'm going to ask you today. So recently your husband was, I believe, in the People's Sexiest Men Alive edition. Well, my question is it his genuine sexiness, or is it the work that you do on him with his makeup?
I think it's the genuine sexiness.
Okay.
It's there all the time. It's that was a very, very fun, exciting thing. I definitely have at least 5 copies of that magazine.
I was going to give you the opportunity to take some credit for it, but
they do. We've got they're all natural beauties out there. Just a little bit of bronzer goes a long way,
Yeah. Well, it is amazing how, if you look at all those Wolf shows, they're always very good looking casts.
They are. They definitely hire some very beautiful people that they bring a lot to the show. They're all so talented.
I was going to say, forgetting their looks, they're just talented people.
They're incredibly talented, and it's a hard show. Working exteriors in Chicago,
yeah,
they're 12, 16-hour days. It is brutal, and people don't complain. It's definitely a family unit, and it takes a lot of resilience to get through the whole season.
So when you left the show, I know you did some other movies and stuff, but what was your decision or your thought process to kind of evolve from that aspect to your life into what you're kind of doing now?
So kind of how I was telling you, how they're long days, very arduous. I suffer from chronic back issues, and my health basically fell apart. I couldn't swing the 12, 16-hour days outside anymore. So I had to rethink my career path. And it was a scary thing, but I knew that I needed to take care of myself and really take a step back for the first time. So I ended up leaving season 5 or 6, I believe. And I actually, one of my sisters ended up sending me a YouTube link for a paramedical tattoo artist tattooing a burn survivor. And that's kind of where the transition started happening because, we had met so many wonderful firefighters and all these incredible heroes and have heard insane stories of survivors. And it hit something in me. And I knew that was exactly what I needed to do moving forward. And from there, I just started getting training and hopping on the new career path.
So let's take a step back for a second, because I'll be honest with you, I never heard the term
Yeah.
until I started researching, talking to you and so forth. So before we get into what you do, kind of define what is paramedical tattooing.
So paramedical tattooing is creating possibly missing body parts. So it includes areola restorative tattooing for breast cancer survivors, scar camouflaging for burn survivors. So whether you have darker or lighter scar tissue, I can camouflage that back using natural skin tone pigments to appear like the natural skin tone. But you can create toenails, belly buttons, fingernails. There's a lot of things that you don't normally think of what the possibilities are. So it's a really, really cool thing. It is very niche though. I actually had never heard of it until I saw that video as well. And it's a very niche market, and it's cool that it's getting more noticeability out there. And it's the outreach is definitely kind of up and coming.
Yeah, because it's something that isn't well known, and it doesn't have necessarily a huge following like a regular tattoo, studio. How do you go about finding, your customers? Is it through referrals from medical practitioners, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, so it's definitely a lot of word of mouth. You'll work with one survivor, and they'll a lot of times be involved in support groups. And I've spoken at a couple of support groups. I've also done some work with the Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, and gotten some clients through them as well. But a lot of it is social media. Before I ended up making this career path just transition, I actually had deleted my Instagram. And once I knew I was doing this, I got it right back, because a lot of people find out artists through Instagram and social media. So that's definitely a helpful avenue. Yeah.
I actually went onto your page this morning and looked at some of the work, and it's remarkable. I mean, it really is. I mean, you can't tell the difference, which I guess is ultimately your objective. If you can't tell what you're doing, that's probably the highest compliment, because you don't want it to look like you want it to look like what it was supposed to be before you.
Exactly. You want it to be seamless, and there's a lot of different things, just artistry, little details, and a lot of it is actually leaning into imperfections, because nobody is perfect. We were completely made of imperfections, and creating like hyper realistic things. It makes a big difference to be able to create things like that.
So I think one of the things I liked about reading on your website, I'm going to kind of quote you a little bit, if I may. You talk about, when there's such a emphasis in the world on, beautiful appearances and things like that, finding the balance between inner and outer beauty. So I think the important thing about this is not only making someone look better in their minds outside, but probably more importantly, making them feel better about themselves inside, because I imagine most of the people you're dealing with have obviously gone through some traumatic event.
Yes.
Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. It's really powerful what paramedical tattooing can do for people. People have definite trauma that they've been through physically, emotionally, And the transformations that can happen through these tattooing services is pretty remarkable. People can gain a whole new sense of self, and it's really just about giving them back. They're taking control back over their body because they didn't have control of what happened to them.
Right.
So it's really especially for when dealing with breast cancer survivors. A lot of times it's the last step of their journey, and you're only tattooing someone once all of their revisions and surgeries are done. But most people, a lot of people end up in tears just of happiness and feeling beautiful again. And that's absolutely hands down the most amazing part about what I do is giving people a sense of self and confidence, because everyone is so beautiful. And when we have something taken from us and are insecure about something, and just a little thing that can help us like this, it's really, really cool.
Plus, in life in general, you always feel good when you make someone feel better. And it could just be a friend being down and you shoot them a text. It could be, someone's not feeling well down the street, so you have, Grubhub delivered to them with a meal, so something, soup, they have to think about it.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is really changing just how they're viewing themselves, not just in that one moment that they're down, but their life in general. And you're really just giving them, talking about the breast cancer person as an example. They've just gone through God knows what, whether it's chemo, radiation, 6 months, thoughts if they're going to survive and all this. And as you said, this is the culmination of potentially 9 bad months, a year, 2 years. And this is like, okay, it's almost like, you're symbolically closing the door on that part of their life. And that's got to be just an awesome feeling for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is the most rewarding thing in the world. I mean, having my passion for makeup has been amazing, and I still love it to this day. But what I do now and being able to connect with these people and hear their stories it's really, really powerful and just amazing. I love doing it.
Yeah. So you have a storefront as well, right?
I do. We opened 3 months ago.
And tell me a little bit about that.
So our boutique was also kind of inspired by a lot of my clients. We've known so many people that have been diagnosed with different forms of cancer, and it's a really tough journey. And so when we started getting care packages together for people, we would end up going to 6 different stores around the city. And so we thought there needs to be a place where you can go and get a one-stop shop for cancer care, things that make you feel good, mental health. So our boutique focuses on, we highlight women-owned, BIPOC-owned, and eco-friendly businesses. Everything is sustainably sourced. And then we also donate a portion of every purchase back to 5 different charities. Wow. And we are just passionate about lifting up, conscious shopping, lifting up the right people, small family businesses, and giving back. So we do have a lot of feel-good things and things that will aid in like a chemotherapy journey, which is really tough.
Yeah, amazing. So with this business comes obviously the business side of things and the accounting side of things. And
yes,
and be remiss, it's a we're an accounting firm, it's an accounting podcast. You are obviously a client of our firms. You work with one of our very talented people. So,
I do.
Yeah, and Ashley Green is just absolutely fantastic. Talk to me about what you feel is the relationship with you and your, not only say accountant, but business advisor and so forth, and just how, that really helps you now and in your career journey.
So ever since we have had Ashley hop on board, life has been so much better, so much better, so much more stress-free. Ashley is incredible. There's a lot of different facets that she's helped us with. It's not only bookkeeping and taxes, but there are a lot of things that are complicated getting a business together. My sister and I did this just Googling a lot of things and really just figuring it out step by step. And having Ashley as an asset to us has been incredibly helpful. She's great at explaining things that we don't understand sometimes, and just kind of eases, I don't want to say the pain, but eases the process of a handful of things that aren't our strong suits. And yeah, it's been a huge help ever since she's she's joined us.
Yeah, the like you just said, I think you summed it up well. One of the approaches we try and take, and I know Ashley's the same way, is we just don't want to be thought of as your tax preparer or your bookkeeper or things like that. We want to be there to kind of guide you through your business. And from my opinion, there's nothing more exciting than starting with someone in your case who just opened a store, I think you said 3 months ago, and
Yeah.
watching that path with you. Not necessarily coming at you when you've already found your success with the store because it's a new store, but
Yeah.
being a part of it and watching you achieve that success that I've no doubt you're going to hit. And when you talk about rewarding things now, that from us, that's one of the rewarding things that, we get out of the job is to watch you, grow, watch you achieve your professional goals. And on the side, hear these amazing things that you're doing and know that, we, or in this case, Ashley just played a small role in allowing you not to worry about the other stuff that
Yeah.
allowed you to focus on providing these wonderful, services to people.
Yeah, it is absolutely that. And man, I cannot speak highly enough of Ashley and what she's done to help us, because there are just a lot of things that, there's one thing after another. It never stops. And she's been great in advising, even just with our insurance. What we're doing is it's a unique business, having the paramedical tattoo side of things and the boutique, and
Yeah.
having just the referrals from you guys, getting everything pointed in the right directions, knowing that we are setting ourselves up for success and we'll slowly grow together and just stay connected and present. It's definitely a big feeling of ease and comfort.
That's awesome. Now I'm going to change gears based upon something you just said when you used the word insurance. I know you
Yes.
were talking a different type of insurance, but the work that you're doing, it just came to my head now. Is any of this considered medical in nature, or is it all deemed to be cosmetic?
Unfortunately, it is deemed cosmetic
Mhm.
from the medical standpoint. It is not covered by insurances. It's something that people in the industry have been fighting for some time. To my knowledge, there have been 2 artists in the country that have acquired insurance, and I believe are no longer working. So there's a lot of work to be done on that note.
Yeah.
It's absolutely something that should be covered.
Yes.
And I mean, we're just the industry right now for tattooing. They're just working on even just freeing the nipple, like being able, because a lot of work is reported. So there is a lot of work to be done in order to gain the visibility and traction we need to provide the survivors with what they should absolutely have covered through their insurance.
I mean, I understand the insurance company's perspective of cosmetic is cosmetic, but with some of the things that you're talking about, to me, this is not cosmetic. This is restoring someone to how they were prior to an illness, a burn, or some other thing that impacted them.
That's
And
right. It's all restorative.
exactly.
Yeah.
And hopefully, but again, you know what I've always found? Businesses, whether it's, when you're dealing with things like cryptocurrency and it's taking the government years to catch up with how to account for that, or the IRS how to tax that.
Right.
And tattooing, while it's always been around, you really think that industry's kind of really grown dramatically over the past 10 years. And this paramedical is probably even, smaller window than that.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's just a situation that the insurance companies are just not caught up to it right now.
Yes, I do feel hopeful for the future that
Yeah.
it can be an avenue that is covered down the road. I mean, big dream goals down the line. It'd be great to become a 501(c)(3) and figure out a way to do it that way. I think there are some alternative ways to get people these treatments that they should have access to.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's several years ahead.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. One of the things that I have down here to ask you about is, was there ever thoughts of somehow having fundraisers to raise money for clients that need this, but might not have the financial capacity to get it? So then when you mentioned a 501(c)(3), that would obviously immediately accomplish that goal.
Right, exactly. And actually, the gentleman's tattoo studio that I was working in before I opened up my own, he ended up starting a 501c3 and he did a lot of post mastectomy tattooing, more botanical imagery, really, really beautiful, intricate work. And he had people starting to fund these tattoos, and it was really, really incredible. Something we do want to do in the boutique downstairs in the store is have a fund a survivor, and just if people want to donate, then they can gift somebody sessions for whatever their loved one may be looking at receiving.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that would be so cool. I would love to be able to provide this for people and just have it covered.
Yeah, and I imagine once you've done your work for someone and they see the impact that you've had on them, both physically and emotionally, those people right then are going to basically be they're going to be your troops. They're going to be your army to help you raise money, because they're going to see what it did for them.
Yeah.
And they're going to want that same feeling for others.
Yeah. Sorry.
No.
Yeah. And a lot of people end up bringing like my cards and stuff to their surgeons and their doctors. And that's kind of another avenue of networking, is getting connected with plastic surgeons and the burn units at hospitals and, veteran support groups. There's so many places where that's an option, and it's definitely helpful having the outreach in the medical field when clients start spreading the word that way.
I'm totally getting off this topic because things just sometimes pop in my mind. And I'm a person, don't have any tattoos, was never really my thing. But you look at someone, no matter what age, and you're like, oh my God, why would you get that? You're going to regret that in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is, whether it's a picture of a current boyfriend or girlfriend, whether it's a saying that seems really cool now when you're 22, but might sound kind of ridiculous when you're 45.
Yeah.
Is the removal of tattoos a pretty easy process?
So I actually have looked into getting trained in laser removal. The training is much longer than learning the techniques for doing the tattooing.
Wow.
So I don't have a ton of knowledge personally on it, but I do know it is an intricate and very delicate process, depending on how heavy-handed your tattoo artist was. That which colors they used, different pigments lift differently. So there's definitely a wide range of laser removal.
Yeah.
And it definitely takes a decent amount of training, as it absolutely should.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in being able to provide that possibly down the road one day.
I would think emotionally, that could be something that could really change someone's lives. If you put something on a loved one and that person ends up, not being who you expected, does something to you, and it's a constant reminder, but getting that removed can kind of be a fresh start to your life or something like that.
Yeah, actually a lot of sex trafficking survivors, some people are branded. Some people have scarring from whatever they went through. And there are some artists that will do, some paramedical or removal or cover-ups for those kind of situations, because it does, it's turning a new leaf. When you are looking at whatever your ailment is, any whatever your scar tissue or a tattoo that's maybe not a good memory, being able to reshape that and have it be something that you're either not seeing at all anymore with camouflaging, or having it disappear with laser, it's a really big deal.
Yeah. Now, some of these things you do, like if we're talking about someone just going through, breast cancer or something like that, how long is that process for you? Is it multiple sessions? Is it, from beginning to end? I know everything's different, but ballpark, what is that time range for someone to go to you to have that restored?
So it's usually just 2 sessions. They're about 3 months apart. I never tattoo on anyone less than 1 year after their last surgery.
Mm-hmm.
You want the skin to heal fully. That's actually something that a lot of surgeons' offices will do too early, and they're doing more damage to the scar tissue. They're also not trained in hyper-realistic areolas. So yeah, I will start a year after one session. You get the shape, and then your follow-up session is locking in any extra detail and ensuring the color matches right. And that's pretty much it. Survivors can expect maybe a shade or two loss of pigment after maybe about a decade. So
Okay.
some people maybe 10 years down the road want a little touch up, but because they're not, usually seeing having a lot of sun exposure, that helps keep that pigment locked in there as well.
I find this stuff totally fascinating, and
Oh,
you've done a really great job explaining it.
thank you.
Tell us how people can find you, both in terms of where your store is on social media, your website.
So our storefront and the tattoo studio, it's all one building, and we are located at 324 North River Street
Mhm.
in East Dundee. And we, our Instagram handle and Facebook handle is Love Willow and Birch. And our website is willowandbirch.com. Very straightforward. And yeah, we're open. The only days we're closed are Mondays and Tuesdays. Otherwise, we're open 11 to 7, Wednesdays through Saturdays, and Sundays 11 to 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I've been looking forward to this because I said once I kind of heard about this, I'm like, this is fascinating. And as I said before, you've accomplished my goal. I try and talk to people that do different things that someone might not know about, and I think we've accomplished that very well today.
Yeah. Thank you
So
so much for
I just
having
want to say I have to give my disclaimers that the opinions and comments made today should not be in any way deemed to be tax advice and or in this case any type of medical advice. And again, it was an absolute pleasure, Caitlin, having you. I look forward to working with you over the next several years, watching your business grow. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
me as well too, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really incredible talking with you.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You too.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On-Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. If you have a question related to this episode or have a request for what you would like to hear, please email us at marketing@adeptuscpas.com. You can also find us at adeptuscpas.com online or follow us at Adeptus on social media. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.